So we'll start to talk about the idea of scale. And the idea of scale is that we have to render objects, materials, furniture, fixtures, equipment, spaces, at a size which is readable. For instance, a room that we're sitting in here, if we were to draw it on a sheet of paper, obviously we can't draw it full scale. Full scale means true scale. 1 inch represents 1 inch. If I were to draw this room at full scale, I would require a sheet of paper about 20 feet by 20 feet. Since I want to communicate this room on a more manageable sheet of paper, I'll use a scale that's more appropriate, which means I might render this room at a scale of 1/8 inch equals a foot. So instead of 1 inch equaling 1 inch, I'm going to have 1 inch equal 96 inches, or 1/8 inch equals a foot scale is the way we call that in the architect scale. The architect scale is a scale that we use. A triangular architect scale has 11 different sides. It's 3 sides with 4 scales per side. The reason it doesn't have 12 is because the 16th inch scale, which serves as a ruler actually, just has 1 scale. The other faces all have double scales. For instance, the other face of that is 3/32 and its double 3/16 inch equals a foot. At 3/4 inch equals a foot, you've got 12 inches, 6 inches, 3 inches, 2, 1.5 inch. So at 3/4 inch equals a foot scale, you have 1/2 inch accuracy. Now you get into the largest scales. The 1.5 inch equals a foot scale, and the 3 inches equals a foot scale. When you get to 3 inches equals a foot scale, you're almost actually 1/4 full scale, which sometimes you might read that. You'll read scales that are true scale is known as full scale. Half full scale is known as half full scale, would also be 6 inches equals a foot. But here on the largest architect scale, we have 3 inches equals a foot, also would be known as quarter full scale. At the 3 inches equals a foot scale, the very first foot is calibrated with each inch. So we have 3 inches equals a foot, we have our 0, but before we get to 0, those 12 inches are marked off and enumerated for you as 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, 6 inch, and so on. And then you go from 0 to 1. So since this represents a foot, that's the first foot to measure. That's the second foot. You could even squeeze in a third foot by using part of the 1.5 inch equals a scale, equals a foot scale. Okay. Now on the 1.5 inch equals a foot scale, which is 1/2 the size of 3 inches, again, that first foot is calibrated in 2 inches, but they call them off as 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches, and 12 inches. You take that 3 inches, you see 2 inches and 1 inch. You further break down that 1 inch, you have 1/2 inch. You further break that 1/2 inch down, and you have 1/4 inch. So you can have 1/4 inch accuracy at 1.5 inches equals a foot scale. And then with 0, it's like that's 1 foot, that's 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot. You can go 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot. Now when you get to 3 inches equals a foot scale, the largest, that first inch can be divided up into 1/2 inch. That 1/2 inch can be further divided into 1/4 inch. That 1/4 inch can be further divided into 1/8 inch, so you can measure with 1/8 inch accuracy at 3/8 inch scale. The thing to know about scales is that there's different relationships of scale. And in this little diagram here, you can see that the scale goes in increasing dimension from the smallest scale, 1/16 inch equals a foot scale, in which 1 foot rendered would be about 1/16 of an inch long, all the way up to 3 inches equals a foot scale, where 1 foot rendered would be 3 inches long. you can get a sense of the relative scale by drawing them graphically each at a foot in length. And you'll see that each scale goes from 16th to 3/32 to 1/8 to 3/16 to 1/4 to 3/8, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.5 to 3 inches, and the scale gets larger. If we looked at them in terms of fractional equivalents and we used the 30 seconds as the lowest common denominator, you would see how that works in terms of 16th inch scale is 2/32, 3/32 inch scale obviously is 3/32. 1/8 inch scale would be 4/32, 3/16 would be 6/32, quarter would be 8/32, 3/8 would be 12/32, 1/2 inch would be 16/32, 3/4 is 24, 1 obviously 32/32 is 1 inch, and 1.5 inch is 48/32 to the largest scale, 3 inches, which is 96/32. That can give you a sense of the relative increase in scale. So when we talk about larger scales, we're actually talking about larger representations of a foot, even though the numbers may be smaller. The fractional equivalent gets larger in the numerator. Okay, so from 2/32 up to 96/32.